Hey everybody, Elizabeth Nader back with you tonight. Again, the Nader Narrative, bringing you great candidates from all over New Jersey, especially focusing on the local elections. And tonight we are doing that as well. We are talking to Eli Moallem, who is running for how do I say that, Eli? Say that.
Pascack Vale.
Pascack Valley. Pascack Valley Regional High School Board of Education. Eli, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I appreciate it.
Glad to have you here. You are such an excellent candidate, and you are an intelligent guy, a hard worker, and I am honored to bring you to everyone on Facebook and YouTube, and I hope that many people from Vale, which is the town that you're in, will see this, will listen and understand your value and vote for you for Board of Education. So Eli, let's back up a little bit. We want people to know who don't know who you are, what you do, and why you got into this race.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. And I really appreciate you saying that because I see you interview some really cool people. So being on here is a little big deal for me. So thank you.
That's great.
So as you mentioned, I'm running for the Pascack Valley Regional High School Board of Education. It's a 2-school system that covers 4 towns up in the very northeast part of New Jersey in Bergen County. I am a father of 4. I met my wife when I was 18 and she was 16. I am a financial planner and a financial advisor. I've been a youth coach for the last 20 years. And also I'm a former mentor for the Big Brothers, Big Sisters of New York City. And on the side, I like to try to help some people who are trying to save America.
Absolutely. And you're a freedom fighter. And as you can see, we're very patriotic tonight, showing our colors, which is so important. But, Eli, a lot of people are jumping into local races. I've never seen anything like it. This year, we've seen so many people at meetings, parents who are upset, a lot of really good people jumping into races, but you didn't have to do this. You have an intense career. You have a lot to do. You're helping a lot of people. You've got 4 kids. So why jump into this race now to be on the Board of Education?
Well, I think like many of us, we allowed things to go for a long time while we were busy raising families, trying to make a living, trying to pay our taxes. And I think we woke up one day and found that things were really, really bad.
Yeah.
And it's at all levels. I am shocked. When I got involved in the Board of Ed here in our local community, I also get involved in the K-8, even though I'm not running there. I'm quite shocked at some of the inner workings of what goes on, how they run our schools. This is a massive enterprise. The people who run our schools have a tremendous amount of power. And I think the people like us, we don't have a voice in the process. We've been completely disregarded, in some ways disrespected.
Yes.
And I think, a lot of us have just said enough is enough. We're trying to respectfully have our voices heard.
Yeah.
Not like what the National School Board Association said when they called us terrorists and they sicked the FBI on us, which of course that house of cards came down because it was completely untrue.
Right.
But think about what that may have done to some people like me running for these elections that may have said some things passionately. Did they get a knock on the door from the FBI? Do they have to worry about their jobs? I mean, we're talking about, my town is a very small town. And you'd be shocked at the politics that have been played in this little local race. So I got involved because really somebody asked me to, because I've been a coach in town. They know I've been active and they know I got a little bit of energy.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a time to start fighting for our schools and our kids.
Well, you're definitely the right kind of person we need to see on Board of Education. And you're right. We took our eye off the ball for too many years thinking that all was well, but we've been getting there step by step by step. And now we're waking up to this. So let's go through some of the issues. I'm sure there are some that are specific to your particular board, but we have several that are across the board in every town in New Jersey, many nationwide. First of all, let's start with the masking issue. We know that it's an executive order from Governor Murphy to mask the students, and that most of the schools are saying we have to abide by that. What are you seeing in terms of the discussion regarding the mask issue within your Board of Education?
So it's very telling when you see the Board of Eds employing some of these mandates. I think we've clearly seen some towns and some Board of Eds fighting back, pushing back, asking questions, and yet others have fully embraced it. So last year, when there was no mandate, we did require masks in our school.
Wow.
This year, I think a lot of Board of Eds who do appreciate all these policies, they basically had the cover of the governor. They said, hey, it's not, it's not in our control. We have to do it.
Right.
But there's a lot of very telling things that happen when you start to just scratch a little bit of the surface. You'll find that it wasn't a mask mandate. It was a mask policy mandate. And the policy included exemptions. So I've pressed my board over and over again for something called the heat exemption.
Right.
So if the temperatures are extremely high outside, the kids are supposed to be able to take off the masks.
Right.
So I've asked the board who's implementing this important mandate, what are the criteria for excessive heat? Have we determined it? Do the teachers know? If we don't have the full policy implemented, we're putting kids at risk. We're putting the district in liability. And by the way, it just shows you that, I don't know whether I want to call it incompetence, but you can see it's very telling when they employ these mandates, when they leave things like that out, or when they make the process to have a doctor's permission to not wear a mask, and they make that extremely challenging. You can tell what direction they're going in. And that's the part that scares me. The writing is on the wall for me.
Yeah. Well, listen, if you're going to hide behind an executive order, then you have to adhere to the executive order. And let's be very specific. As you say, there is the heat exclusion. There's also a very clear medical exclusion. And, there are many towns who are refusing to award the medical exemptions for masks. So you can't have it both ways. And you have to, obviously, if there's an exclusion, you have to abide by it. But you're right. It tends to reveal what maybe the ideology or overriding agenda may be. So you are conclusively against masking children, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for me, I don't know that I'm, let's say, anti-mask. If you want to put a mask on your kid, I may think that's really, really harmful. I've done a lot of research on it. So be it. But for me and my family, I think we should be able to make decisions. And I just want to be able to protect that really important personal decision for families to make on their own without intrusion from the government or our schools.
Okay, so let's move to other items that are really intrusions into the home front as well. And that would be certain things in curriculum, starting with critical race theory. Now, this has been a bit of an education for many people. What is CRT? I think in the beginning, when they started hearing this, they thought it was a class, it was a textbook, it was a thing that you could easily identify. But as we know, it's not. It's an ideology that sneaks its way into various subjects within the school system. So has that subject come up in your Board of Education meetings, and where do you stand on that?
So again, I'm very much opposed to all of it. It goes under the banner of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I've pressed people on the word equity because it's part of my day job and they're twisting words. But put that aside, while the notion is very noble, right? Diversity and inclusion, we're all for it. There's no question about it. The interesting thing is our community has already been diverse and inclusive, and we've been respectful, and we have kind and decent people. So I feel that more than anything, it's unnecessary, but we know it's not that. It's disguised as this noble cause, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that this is all political.
Right.
It's all ideology, and it's all driven by one side.
Right.
And, I think if anybody's being fair and objective, they really need to acknowledge that point first, because we live in a somewhat 50-50 world, right? And I don't think the founders of our country decided to form our nation so that the 51% can abuse and run roughshod on the 49%.
That's right.
The people who are screaming diversity and inclusion often are very uninclusive, and they're very disrespectful, and they shut people out. I've brought up families of faith over and over again into board meetings. I've said repeatedly, why is it that everybody gets a seat at the table except families of faith?
Right.
Where are their voices being heard? Because some of these things are highly offensive to our families in town. And I think that is nationwide. People of faith, I consider myself a man of faith. I consider myself old-fashioned.
Right.
And some of these things are just gross for me. And I think it's just beyond what we should be dealing with in school.
Well, what you're sort of bringing into this as well is not just the CRT and the curriculum, but also the sex education curriculum that got handed down by Trenton, which suddenly overnight went all the way down to kindergarten. And so the things that are in that curriculum are shocking, I think, to any most decent individual who would look at that in that age group. And what you're essentially saying is, for me as a man of faith, I want to decide what I teach my children, right? So we often hear that saying, the kitchen table, right? And so what should be taught at the kitchen table? What should be taught at school? The lines seem to be blurred. How do you think a school should run, and how should a board of education treat the home, treat the parents, and balance that with what should be taught in school?
Well, so to touch on that point, here they're calling it health literacy. And there was an article in the paper recently and described in pretty graphic detail what was going to be opened up to grades 3 to 6. And it's nothing short of shocking. I posted it on some of my campaign pages, and you'd be surprised at some of the reactions. I've been going door knocking, and I meet people, and I said, I don't know if you've seen the article, but I can't really say what's in there, especially if a woman comes to the door. I cannot say the words that were in the article describing what this health literacy was. And this is, we're going to be teaching it to our kids. We've heard the expression before. It seems like our front door has been kicked in. And people that don't necessarily share our values and don't have our interest, and in some cases, from my perspective, don't have my family's best interest at heart, are demanding a seat at the table, demanding a voice at the table, and not just that, demanding that we follow their values. Diversity comes in many stripes, and there are diverse values. And when I say that, I don't mean there are racists and good people. There are diverse values. There are good people on every side of the equation, and it would be really shameful if we disregarded such a large group.
Well, you say they want a seat at the table. They want a seat at your table, at your kitchen table. When did we ever think that was okay? So we really have to back up here and look at education holistically and the way we thought it was being run in the United States. If you could step into that role and just sort of hit a reset button, what is your vision for the school district? How do you believe things should be run? What are the top goals? What should the vision be and the focus if you're actually doing the job people put you in the position to do?
Well, thank you for that. That's the important question. And believe it or not, I have a big mouth, but I actually have been leading with my tagline, which is excellence in education. I think for most of us growing up here in the United States, we have heard that the United States education system is falling behind the rest of the world. So before the crazy people took over our schools, I thought we had some room for improvement. And I am a product of work. I have had what you would call roughest jobs, the dirty jobs. I've had them all. I consider every single one of them a blessing because it helped feed my family. I really do believe that our schools needed to before and need to now transform into pathways to careers and success. We have a school not too far away from us, about 30 minutes away. It's called Bergen Academies. It's one of the top schools in the nation. And they pull from the top students in all the towns in the county, and they run it almost like a university in that kids get majors and they're working towards a goal. I would love to see that happen at the high school level, where we're starting to introduce kids to careers, bringing experts in, bringing people from the local community. Costs us nothing. And by the way, I think we can also lean on them for some support, some sponsorships, some resources. Maybe somebody's got a deal on paper towels. We can go to right?
Sure.
But I really, really believe that schools needed to be transformed more than anything into direct pathways to career. What we're trying to do is raise successful young people so that they can raise their families in towns like ours. And if we don't get away from all of this stuff that I call non-educational initiatives, we are going to rob our kids of bright futures. We're promising them today that the world is owed to them, and that's poisonous.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that's really bad. The participation trophy syndrome and all of that, right? Praising for effort and not for results. So that's exciting. And I don't hear a lot of people saying that. And I love it, because we can talk about all the issues and we all know what's going on with that. But to have a vision to turn a school into a career pathway, we know that this lie of college, and college is important, but not for everyone, but it's turned into sort of a lie, right? Sort of a little bit of a scam, if you will, in some cases, where we continue to go down a path of ideology learning with really no constructive way to get a job and pay back your debts or make money when you're out. So you're saying bring it to the high school level to the degree that you can. Begin to think about your careers, begin to educate these kids on their options. And, I think 10 years from now, we may not be able to find a plumber or electrician. What happened to the trade? So all of that, to be focusing on that in high school is a very positive thing. I love that plan, Eli. And hopefully you're sharing that with your neighbors. They must be excited about that as well.
Well, like I said, I'm leading really with that more than anything else.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of people that will agree that our schools are not where they should be. In my town, it's measurable. When I moved to this town, we had some of the top rated schools in the state.
Yeah.
Today, 2 of our schools are rated average. 1 is rated below average. And I don't want to pick on any parts of the state, but to be listed as average in a state like ours, for a community like ours, that's significantly underperforming, especially when you consider where we were before. So I think people do agree that our schools needed to be fixed, with it, that we needed to retool some things, that we needed to refocus. So I'm hoping that's the message that resonates more than anything. And really, for those people that we may not disagree on masks and vaccines, I still believe there's some common ground that we can work on some things so that it doesn't feel like one side is completely left out of the equation.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important to talk about what you're for, not just what you're against, right? And to be for something that allows our children the opportunity to succeed earlier in life, have a pathway to success, is incredibly important. And to do that at the high school level, I got to tell you, that's valuable. You would have my vote if I'm in Rivervale, and not just because I know you're a hard worker, I know you're a really intelligent guy, but those kind of ideas is what will save our school systems, really, and allow our children to be competitive. And ultimately, when they're competitive, that means that we have a strong workforce. It means that our economy grows. And really, they like to say our children are our future. It's in every song that you ever hear, but that's the truth. It's going to change everything if we can do that. Eli, can you just give one last push to the constituents, one last thing you want them to remember before we wrap this up?
Well, first of all, thank you again, Elizabeth. I just want the people of Rivervale to know, a lot of people do know me. They know me from coaching their kids, and I've always been a fair human being. I've always been results driven. I think even when you're volunteering, you need to be held accountable and you need to measure what you do. Yeah. I plan on going to the Pascack Valley Board of Education, if the good people of Rivervale elect me, with that same energy, with that same focus to get some results. I'm an ideas guy. That's part of my day job. It's part of my night job. And I'm going to throw a lot of stuff on the table. And I think some of it may stick and some of it may be game changers. But I really, really want to make sure that everybody knows my main focus is to make sure that our kids are well prepared for the future. We live in a great community with tremendous resources. We need to take advantage of those for our kids so that they can end up coming back home. We don't need them going out to California, Florida, Texas, and everywhere else. Right. We want them staying right here, raising families and being successful. And I think if I get into the to the Pascack Valley Board of Education, I'll be able to add some value.
That's awesome. Pascack Valley, I'm going to say it 10 times until I can say it right. But more importantly, Rivervale, because this is your candidate you vote for. Rivervale has 2 spots on that board. And so your friends in that town, your neighbors, you said it's a 2-mile square town, roughly?
We're a tiny little town. Yep.
That's a great opportunity for them to know they have someone this valuable they can put on the board. So Rivervale, if you're listening, we hope you are. Take a long look at Eli and what he's talking about. And for everyone else, share this with anyone who you know in Rivervale. It's really time for change, and it's exciting to hear positive change like this and really, really strong ideas. So Eli, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. God bless you.
You the same. We wish you all the best. We'll see what happens next week. We are with you. And to my audience, guys,